Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're digging into a 4,000-year-old story about a promise so out there, so impossible. It sparked two totally different human responses, one of just extravagant action and the other of quiet, hidden doubt.
This ancient story really gets at two timeless ways we humans respond when we're up against something that seems unbelievable. And the whole thing kicks off on what was, by all accounts, a totally normal, sweltering hot day.
So, picture this. We've got Abraham. He's 99 years old, and he's just trying to escape the worst of the midday heat, sitting outside his tent. It's quiet, it's still, and then that stillness is completely shattered when three strangers just appear.
And what the sources really stress here is that this wasn't some special occasion. It wasn't a ceremony. It wasn't a designated time for prayer. It was just a regular, hot afternoon. It's this powerful idea that these huge, divine encounters don't always happen in some grand cathedral. A lot of the time, they find us right in the middle of our most mundane, everyday moments.
Abraham's reaction? Well, it's pretty stunning, especially for a 99-year-old guy in the blistering desert heat. He doesn't just nod or give a polite wave. No, he absolutely springs into this whirlwind of activity.
I mean, just look at the words the text uses here. It is all about motion, running, bowing, rushing, hurrying. This is so much more than just being a polite host. This is a full-on physical act of service. The commentaries even describe it as a form of worship in itself.
And this part is just brilliant, because it shows this huge gap between his humble words and his over-the-top actions. He says, hey, let me get you a little something, but what he actually does is prepare a massive feast. Get this, that amount of flour, 3 seahs, that's enough to make bread for around 50 people. This is a generosity that goes way, way beyond just being a good neighbor.
So it's right in the middle of all this incredible hospitality that the real reason for their visit comes out. The whole conversation shifts when the visitors ask for his wife Sarah, but they use her new name. That's a detail only God would know, and that's the first real clue that this is no ordinary visit. And then they drop the bombshell.
Sarah, your wife will have a son. I mean, you have to imagine this promise landing like a meteor, because it just completely flies in the face of the cold, hard facts of their entire lives. For decades, their reality has been nothing but barrenness and waiting.
Let's just be real for a second. From a purely biological, logical point of view, this isn't just unlikely, it is flat out impossible. They've been trying for a child for over 2 decades, and this stark, unchangeable reality, well, it brings us to the story's second and very different response.
Okay, so let's shift perspectives. Let's go to Sarah. She's inside the tent, she overhears this whole thing, and she doesn't come running out shouting for joy. Nope. She reacts on the inside with pure, cold logic.
And so, Sarah laughs. But it's to herself. And it's not a mean laugh, not a mocking one. It's that tired, cynical little laugh of someone whose entire life experience, whose own body, has been screaming the word impossible at her for years.
The source commentaries have this really fascinating way to frame this contrast. They call it a battle of the gaze, or sisan in Korean. Sarah's gaze, it's pointed inward, totally fixed on her own limitations, on her impossible reality. But Abraham's gaze is pointed outward, focused on serving his guests and this divine presence they represent. The whole idea is that where we choose to direct our focus, that's what determines our response.
And this is where the story hits its absolute climax. The divine visitor reveals something truly incredible. He heard Sarah's silent, internal laugh. Just like that, her private, internal doubt is now a public conversation. Her secret thought is out in the open, and she's terrified. Her immediate gut reaction is just to deny it.
It's just such a human thing to do, isn't it? To get caught in a moment of disbelief and immediately try to backtrack, to cover it up.
But the response she gets isn't anger. It's not shame. It's just a simple, calm statement of fact. And then the visitor follows it up, not with a lecture, but with a question that completely reframes everything.
And that's it. That's the central question of the entire narrative. The sources talk about this as a divine statement that just shatters the ceiling of what's humanly possible. It yanks the focus away from Sarah's very real inability and puts it squarely on God's absolute power.
So what's the big takeaway from all this? Well, what this story seems to be saying is that faith isn't about never having any doubts. In fact, the sources are quick to point out that Abraham also laughed at this promise in an earlier chapter. The real difference was their focus, that gaze. God meets both of them right there in their doubt, and the name of their future son, Isaac, which literally means he laughs, becomes this incredible permanent reminder of this very human moment.
In the end, this story just gives us this powerful contrast between two ways of seeing the world. You have Sarah's gaze of doubt, which is trapped by the logic of her situation, keeping her stuck inside the tent. And then you have Abraham's gaze of faith, which is captivated by the promise, and it's what compels him to run out and act.
And so that really leaves us with one final thought. When we're facing our own impossible situations, this ancient story asks us a very modern question. Where are we choosing to look? At the limitation or at the promise?